Big day for me here with the 1946 WR Racer. My 46 WR engine is still being worked on, still being built. I won't get it till later this summer. But my 1941 WLD engine did arrive this morning. You know, it's a big valve, big intake port, big cam, 45 cubic inch, probably making it in the 40 horsepower range. Stock engine makes 21 horsepower, so pretty big difference. And that's going to be the engine I run in the WR until the actual WR engine is done. So I'm going to go ahead and install that today, get a bunch of things set up, and start getting the spike ready for the track. So I'm going to go ahead and bolt this engine in a minute, hook up all my primary chain and clutch and my transmission, get all that set up, get my rear chain on it, and then move forward and show you what I'm doing as far as the fab work on the bike. But 1941 WLD, they made a WLD and a WLDR. WLDR is a factory race bike. Didn't have any footboards on it, no lights. Really, truly made for racing. WLD was the same engine, but the bike had footboards on it and lights for riding on the street. But because of the way the rules were made in the 30s and 40s for racing, a manufacturer like Harley-Davidson Indian had to make so many bikes to be able to race a certain model. So they made the WLD so that they had their production numbers up. And so anyhow, this is got big intake valves, big cams, high compression heads. It's got a big twin carburetor on it. This carb is actually off an Indian Chief. So, you know, if it can draw a big carburetor like this, it's doing a lot inside, a lot more than it was meant to do from the factory. But I'm gonna go ahead and get this thing bolted in. I got a Magneto ignition on it. This engine has already been pre-run, so I know it's gonna run. I'm gonna get it in here, get everything set up, and I'm gonna make a set of exhaust pipes for it. Stainless exhaust pipes, 2-in-1 with a collector, so this thing will really draw some horsepower. With the engine bolted securely in the bike, I'm gonna get this right side control strap bolted back on because I wanna make the exhaust on this bike. I'm gonna make stainless steel, tuned stainless steel racing exhaust for this thing. It's probably gonna look a little modern for most of your tastes for a bike from this era, but it's what it takes to make them really, really run and make power. They got a lot of money, you know, in the bike and in the engine. So I wanna get the max power out of it. So I wanna make an exhaust, just bear with me on it. I think it's gonna be really, really cool to see it come together. But I need kind of everything on the right side of the bike so I can make sure my pipes don't interfere with anything. I need the Kickstarter on, I need the Magneto on, I need this foot pedal on because my front exhaust port's right here, my rear exhaust port's here, the clutch cable runs right through here, so you're really limited in space. So I've got the scavenge pump oil line on, I've got the breather oil line on. This feed line I can manipulate around the exhaust pipe because it can run outside of it. So I don't have that on right now, it's just going to be in my way at this moment. But I'm going to go ahead and start fabbing up these pipes and let you see how I make a custom set of stainless pipes and how this thing really starts coming together and how you build a great racer. I'm going to make the exhaust for the WLD Racer from 1.5-inch stainless tubing. Instead of bending the tubing the way I want it, I buy pre-made bends and weld them together. So it's kind of a really cool look. It allows me to get exactly what I want. And I can do it right here in the shop in a day and a half's time versus, you know, trying to map everything out and send it someplace and have it bent and have it not exactly fit the way I want. And obviously I can manipulate it too. If I wreck the bike, if something happens, if I want to change it, I can just go ahead and cut away what I did and remake it. So I'm gonna walk you through this. I'm not going to tell you everything I'm doing because it's hard to explain my thought process, but I will show you everything I'm doing step by step, and you'll see pretty quick how I get an exhaust on this bike. I'm going to start with the front pipe here for a couple reasons. One, it has to avoid hitting this brake pedal. I'm not going to use the brake for the racing I'm doing, but eventually I'm going to want to hook the brake up for one thing or another. So I have the brake pedal and the linkage here. So this pipe has to clear that pedal. It has to clear the Magneto and give the Magneto room to be advanced and retarded for timing. And then that pipe has to squeeze in between the cylinder head and the kicker pedal and the kicker arm, and either over or under the clutch cable, which is right here, and then back around through the back of the bike so they can exit the bike. The back of the bike part is easy. It's fishing it around all this stuff up in the front here that's more difficult. I already mentioned the oil lines. This feed pump oil line here, I can manipulate that any way I want, so I'm not super concerned about that as long as I leave myself enough room to get a bend in up to that fitting. But I'm going to go ahead and start working from this head back, and then as I work my way back, I'll start coming off the rear head and I'll merge those two pipes together into a collector, and we'll get to that a few minutes down the road. Okay, I'm gonna come with a pretty hard radius right off this front pipe. I'm gonna wanna run this pipe up at a little bit of an angle, and this curve is gonna come at two different spots. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and make my mark about where I think I need that cut to be to come off of the head. And I'm gonna make a spigot piece that goes up inside the head and weld that to this pipe. So that's gonna be my first joint. I'm gonna actually go ahead and cut it down here a little ways further. I can always work my way back if I need to. Definitely wanna mask up when you're using a 6-inch cutting wheel on an angle grinder, because when they come apart, it isn't pretty. So there's my first cut coming off the head. You can see it gives me room to get into my brake pedal if I need it. It's got me coming a little bit outboard of the Magneto, a little bit of swing for the mag for advance and retard. I usually set those mags pretty close to full advance for racing. You definitely don't want to run it retarded for racing. It'll overheat the engine and lose power. So I've got that one kind of set up. I'm gonna make the little spigot section, weld it to this head pipe, and I'll start moving back from there. I got a piece of stainless up in the exhaust spigot. I'm gonna go ahead and weld this first piece of my head pipe to it. And I'm just gonna tack it together in 3 or 4 spots. Then I can rotate this first part and get this exhaust pipe lined up from the front to the rear. There's my rear head pipe into the 2-into-1 collector. And now I'm gonna try and merge the front exhaust pipe to the other side of the collector. Trick is, this clutch cable has to run between these 2 pipes and they're really close together. So it's a little trick here, but I'm gonna pull it off. I've got the front pipe angling up as soon as it comes out of that collector. And that allows it to diverge from the other pipe and give space for the clutch cable to run in between. Then I'm gonna cut here and angle this pipe back down and have it merge with this pipe here. And then it's a matter of welding the can on. I've always found the hardest thing about making exhaust pipes is doing the mounts. So I've got the pipes all cut and welded the way I want. I've got a mount going in here on the back side, and it's kind of hard for me to squeeze you in there to see it. But I use a stainless steel nut as my mount bung. I just weld that nut right to the back side of the pipe with stainless steel rods, so everything's stainless. But you can see how the pipe lines up on the bike. Really got a great look. Custom stainless steel exhaust, 2-into-1 is gonna give me some exhaust scavenging. So all I really gotta do is get this mount welded on. I'll tack it on here, take it off the bike, finish weld it. I just use this bolt to kind of line me up with a jam nut on the back side of the mount. I have a spacer down there because when I run a chain guard, the chain guard is gonna take up some space, so I leave myself a little extra space with a nut down there. And I got some pipes that are mounted up pretty sturdy to the bike and won't try and blow themselves out of the head when this thing's running full RPM. I got my WR tanks cleaned and primed in gray primer. I'm getting ready to paint them. I'm not a painter, so don't you guys go knocking my paint game here. Don't expect too much from me, but right now I don't have the time to get these to a professional painter between now and the time I need them. So I'm gonna go ahead and spray paint them and we'll put a proper paint job on them later. But I'm gonna show you how it's done either way. I'm gonna paint it several different colors and backmask it and peel the tape and have a pretty cool looking setup for this bike. I'm gonna start with red. Don't worry, it's not going to remain red. I don't really care that much for a red motorcycle, but there's a reason I'm doing this. Now the 46 WR is going to be black, so naturally you paint them red. Okay, as I mentioned, these tanks are going to be black, but they're going to be black with a red pinstripe down the middle, a thick red pinstripe. And there's gonna be a thin gold pinstripe on either side of the red. And then it's gonna have the metal badge in the middle. So that's why I painted these red. Don't worry about the orange peel or anything. First of all, this is just spray paint. I'm not trying to do a pro paint job. I'm just getting these painted for my race that's here in Tennessee in May. And then I'll get a proper paint job on it later, or maybe just leave these and get another set of tins and fix them up and get them over to the paint shop, and I'll have these as a set of spares. But when I'm done with all this paint, I'm probably gonna age it, antique it, patina, you know, people have different terms for it. So I'm not really worried about how it looks right now, how clean it goes on, if there's any dust or dirt in it, because it's just gonna all get sanded through and aged anyhow. So I'll show you how I do that process as I get toward the end. But right now I'm gonna go ahead and tape this off for the red stripe, and then we'll start painting gold. All right, so my goal is to tape linearly straight off of the center line of this tank badge right to the middle of the tank. I'll do the same thing on the other. I'm using this green masking tape here. And that's gonna give me my center stripe. I'm gonna go way up under the badge. So I like that line there. I'm gonna turn around and tape it from the badge to the rear, then match it on the other tank. What's replicating from the other side is I line these two tanks up with the mount holes, because that's going to be where they're going to ride on the bike. And you can see I've got this side way higher than the other side, so I got to come back and come in like that so they line up when you look at it from the front. Because if they line up when you look at it from the front, they're going to line up when you look at it from the side. And then make sure I'm straight here. Same thing with the rear pinstripes. They've got to line up from side to side. There's my tanks, red. I've got the green masking tape on, and now I'm gonna paint them gold. And what that's gonna do is when I peel the tape later on, I peel the green tape off, the red's gonna be beneath the tape, and it's always gonna be there. So no matter what I paint gold, when I peel the green tape, whatever is green taped is gonna remain red. Red taped and ready for gold. Tank's got a good thick coat of gold on them. I'm gonna let that dry. A few hours from now, I'll go ahead and tape off the gold stripes and be ready to paint them black. Now I got my tanks coated first in red, then taped for the red stripe, and coated in gold. And now I'm gonna go ahead and tape using 1/8 thick masking tape. I'm gonna go ahead and tape for the gold stripe, and I'll paint black over top of everything. So what I gotta do is tape right along the edge of this masking tape without overlapping it, without leaving a gap, so that the black paint doesn't bleed through. It's kind of tricky, but I'll show you how I do it. And just to make sure, in case there is any gap between the blue and the tape here, that's gonna make my pinstripe want to bleed over. I'm gonna go ahead and tape little overlap here from the blue to the painted over green tape, just so that the black paint can't bleed through. Not really where it's happening underneath the badge here, because you're not going to see it. So there's both tanks painted in gold, back masked for the gold and red stripes. And I'm gonna wet sand them and paint them both black. Because I told you this bike's gonna be black. All right, finally, here goes my coat of black. There's a good first coat of black paint. I'm gonna let that set a little bit and go ahead and put another coat on it. Then when the black is done, I'm gonna pull the tape and you'll see the red and gold stripes, and I'll wet sand it all and put a clear coat over top of it. Kind of a quick review of what I've done. I primed the tanks, I painted them in gold, masked off the gold stripes, painted them red, masked off the red stripes, then painted everything black. Now I'm gonna pull the masking tape. The gold and red stripes will reveal themselves. Then I'm gonna go ahead and clear coat the entire thing. And we'll go through the aging process a little later on. So there goes the top gold stripe. There's my bottom gold stripe. As I pull this center piece of green tape, it reveals my red stripe down the middle. Here's the 46 WR racer that I've been working on. I'm getting ready for Sons of Speed race here at 10 Jam in Tennessee, Memorial Day weekend. It's got a 41 WLD, big valve, big cam, high compression race engine in it right now. The WLD and WLDR engines are the same. The bike was different. You know, the bike, WLD had brakes and lights made for running on the street. WLDR was a pure race machine, but the engines are the same. So this 41 WLD should run really good on the track until the 46 WR is done at Departure Bike Works in Richmond. Handmade stainless steel exhaust. I got to finish it up. The bike's not completely done yet, but you can get a feel for the race style of it. I mean, it's where bobbers came from, which is where choppers came from. So I really like the way this thing came out. I'm gonna go ahead and show you how I aged the paint. I aged this paint. I'm gonna go ahead and make a YouTube video of how I do it so you can see how it's done, but it looks pretty legit considering this is all new sheet metal. I'm not really going for vintage originality, so the red anodized doesn't bother me like it normally would. Normally I'd have, you know, all blacked out stuff and a drum brake on it. Same thing with the stainless exhaust. I like a more traditional exhaust, but this thing's gonna make it really run, make it really tunable. This is my timing hole. Inside the hole is the flywheel from the engine. And that marker on the flywheel is the front cylinder advance timing mark. So Harley-Davidson puts that timing mark on the flywheel at 35 degrees before top dead center. That would be your spark advance, would be 35 degrees if you time it to that mark. Not only does that mark have to be in the timing hole, but you also have to have the front cylinder on the compression stroke, because you want both the intake exhaust valves closed, because you're going to fire the spark plug and force the piston down, and with the valves open, you lose all that pressure. So I have to make sure that my intake and exhaust tappets have the proper lash. So having all that done, I'm gonna go ahead and put the Magneto ignition on. So, you know, this is a Harley 45 degree V-twin engine, rear intake, rear exhaust tappets, front intake, front exhaust tappet. Here's the Magneto drive. And as you look at it, this Magneto drive spins clockwise, looking at it from the top. Here's the Magneto head. So when the Magneto rotates, the windings in the Magneto rotate in a magnetic field. The rotating windings moving in the magnetic field create electromotive force in the wire and the windings. The charge in that wire is transferred to the coil, which amplifies it, and then the points open it, allowing the spark to jump across the points, transferred through the spark plug wires to the spark plugs. So with my advance mark in the timing hole on the other side of the engine, I want these points to just be opening as you rotate the Magneto counterclockwise relative to the shaft, or you rotate the shaft clockwise relative to the Magneto. So I've got the flywheel mark in the timing hole where I want it. I've got the front cylinder on the compression stroke with the proper valve lash set. And now you can see there's two lobes on this cam. There's a narrow lobe and a wide lobe. The wide lobe fires the rear cylinder. The narrow lobe fires the front cylinder. The timing mark is for the front cylinder, so I'm timing the front cylinder right now. Once I roll this Magneto around to full advance, you'll see this point start to open. See them starting to open right there? So right there would be my 35 degree advance mark. Typically with racing one a little more advanced, so I'll be able to pull it forward a little more. Another probably 5 degrees. But right there I already have it set up where I'm gonna be in my range. So that's the Magneto time for Harley-Davidson 45 V-twin flathead race bike for Sons of Speed. So get ready to go out to Tennessee National Raceway for 10 Jam, the first Sons of Speed race here in Middle Tennessee. Pretty stoked. Everybody's out at the track already running. I'm here with Barry and Doc getting the 1941 WLD ready for eBay Jake to race. And put some super slippery Z-Max 20W50 in it. That's what I'm running all my race bikes. Haven't stuck one yet. See, my funnel skills are kind of soft.
Ready to go.
So this sucker's dead cold, pipes are cold. I know the engine was pre-run, but I haven't tried to run it yet, so this is the first attempt at starting it. Wish us luck.